You think you know British comedy, but here's the kicker. What Americans think is British comedy isn't even scratching the surface. While Monty Python and Mr. Bean are celebrated, a darker, sharper, more subversive side of British humor has been quietly waiting in the wings, and it's a world many across the Atlantic never knew existed. Let's dive into a dozen films that prove British comedy isn't quaint, it's brutal, ironic, unsettling, and absolutely brilliant. Americans often assume British comedy begins and ends with silly walks and pratfalls. But there's a treasure trove of films that turned propriety inside out, skewered social norms, and laughed at authority, all while being almost invisible in the United States. That's not a coincidence. The kinds of truths these films exposed weren't easy to swallow. Today, we're going to uncover 12 forgotten British comedies, each with a razor's edge that America largely ignored. And by the end, you'll see how Hollywood's safe, sanitized approach to laughs left out the most daring voices. School for Scoundrels, 1960. Let's begin with School for Scoundrels, released in 1960. At first glance, it looks like a gentle social satire. A meek man attends a finishing school to master the art of psychological one-upmanship. But beneath the surface, it's a savage critique of British manners. Henry Palfrey isn't just learning how to win arguments or flirt better. He's internalizing a darker code. That civility and cruelty are two sides of the same coin. Ian Carmichael plays Palfrey with such pathetic earnestness that you'd root for him and yet recoil from what he becomes. Alistair Sim, as the headmaster, teaches CAD tactics with surgical precision. They never tell you what's right or wrong. You just watch players vying for dominance in polite society. Americans trying to remake this turned it into a feel-good redemption story, a twist that completely misses the point. The original refuses redemption. It just shows people adjusting to ruthless rules. And that kind of moral ambiguity? Too uncomfortable for safe Hollywood laughs. The Green Man, 1956. Next, The Green Man, from 1956. Imagine a murder comedy set in a sleepy English village, starring a pub owner who moonlights as an assassin. It sounds absurd, but it's executed with icy, deadpan calm. George Cole plays Hawkins, a man who treats killing like a trade, with professionalism, attention to detail, and polite detachment. His pub is his cover, his victims, carefully chosen. One of the most chilling sequences opens with Hawkins calmly rehearsing his method on a chalkboard, as though giving a lecture in cooking. The juxtaposition violence discussed like domestic routine lingers in your mind long after the joke lands. The supporting cast, from bumbling announcers to clueless clergymen, operates in their own comic gravity. Chaos grows outward from Hawkins, but the film never winks. It never says, "Aren't we clever?" It is clever subtly, dangerously. Hollywood rarely dares to make murder charming. Even fewer do it with such composure. The Bells of St. Trinians, 1954. Now, cast your mind back to The Bells of St. Trinians, 1954. You might expect schoolgirls in pinafores reciting poetry. Instead, you get riotous anarchy. These girls gamble, run illicit businesses, and treat authority with open contempt. Discipline is meaningless. Order is a joke. Society is on its head. Alistair Sim plays dual roles, headmistress and her twin brother, both twisted in charisma and chaos. The scenes where she attempts to restore order feel like watching someone try to empty the ocean with a teaspoon. There's violence, absurdity, and gleeful disorder. This is the antithesis of the childhood innocence trope. These are children who terrify themselves. America's school comedies historically prefer clean mischief and moral lessons. A film that celebrates institutional collapse? Too anarchic for mainstream export. I'm All Right, Jack, 1959. Let's turn to I'm All Right, Jack, 1959. If you thought workplace comedies were safe territory, think again. This one slices through class, industry, and union mechanics with unflinching irreverence. Imagine the office turned up to 11, but instead of passive office jokes, every interaction is a battlefield. Peter Sellers is Fred Kite, a union steward whose inflexible beliefs wobble under real pressures. But he's not sympathetic. He's petty, rigid, absurd. The film drags a wide net. Boardrooms, shop floors, union politics. The system is rotten at every level. No hero emerges. Employees, bosses, union leaders all look foolish. The only innocent member is too naive to survive. In America, comedies about work usually stick to safe satire. I'm All Right, Jack doesn't do safe. It does systemic collapse, and the result is dark, messy, uncomfortably true. The Smallest Show on Earth, 1957. On to The Smallest Show on Earth, 1957. Here's a movie about a crumbling cinema nobody wants, a hopeless couple inheriting disaster, and 3 eccentric staff members who treat everything like an apocalyptic delay. It's not a triumphant underdog story. It's a love letter to failure. Seats fall apart, projectors explode. The place is so decrepit it's a liability, but the tone is gentle, melancholic, affectionate. The film doesn't pretend success is coming. It shows people who persist in absurdity, living in a beautiful collapse. Margaret Rutherford, Peter Sellers, and others inhabit the ruin with comic dignity. It's a meditation on dreams, stagnation, and the absurd persistence of hope in hopeless conditions. Hollywood prefers the triumph. This is the reverse. Dignified acceptance of defeat. That's a hard sell. Two-Way Stretch, 1960. Now watch how they invert everything in Two-Way Stretch. From 1960, a prison heist film, but the criminals don't want to escape. Prison is home. They've turned the penal system into a club with better perks than the outside world. Guards are corrupted. The warden is intimidated. The outside world seems alien. When they plan a diamond heist, their real problem isn't getting it. It's re-entering prison. The plot is upside down. Dodger Lane, Peter Sellers, is ruthless, logical, and deeply pragmatic. It's not criminals versus system, it's criminals inside, optimizing the system. The film toys with morality. Who's lawless? Who's corrupt? The lines blur. American prison comedies tend to reinforce moral lessons. This one treats prison as a symbiosis. That's a worldview too strange for mass audiences. The Mouse That Roared, 1959. We shift next to The Mouse That Roared, 1959. Political satire of the highest absurdity. A microstate declares war on the United States intentionally to lose, so it qualifies for Reconstruction aid. The plan backfires spectacularly, and diplomacy collapses into chaos. Peter Sellers plays multiple roles, anchoring the insanity with calm authority. The film treats geopolitics as a theater of fools. Cold War stakes, nuclear anxiety all twisted into farce. Neither ideology is innocent. Each side appears absurd, fragile, improvable. American audiences weren't ready to laugh at the weapons race. This film exposes global power as performance and fools as leaders. That kind of satire demands a willingness to question the foundational narrative. Too risky. Carlton Brown of the Foreign Office, 1959. Here's one few even in Britain remember. Carlton Brown of the Foreign Office, 1959. This isn't espionage glamour. It's a bureaucratic farce. A dim official blunders into diplomatic disaster after disaster, while each country around him reacts with their own brand of idiocy. Terry Thomas gives Carlton Brown a bumbling dignity, a man who believes in protocol but has no idea how the world works. His decisions spark revolution, war scares, and diplomatic chaos. Irony drips from every scene. The greater disaster is caused by the man meant to prevent them. It's a satire of empire, diplomacy, and how bureaucracy often fails harder than war. That's not entertainment. It's a mirror held to power. Hollywood rarely shows that side. The Angry Silence, 1960. Now, The Angry Silence, 1960. This is no comedy in the traditional sense. It's a tragicomic depiction of labor conflict. A worker refuses to join a strike and becomes the target of silent social violence from his peers. It's subtle, devastating. Richard Attenborough plays the lone resistor. He doesn't shout, he holds ground. The film shows how social pressure whispers ostracism can be more effective than threats. It portrays unions, individuals, and systems all failing moral tests. It's less slapstick and more dissection. It's a comedy of conscience. That's a tone many comedies avoid. But the juxtaposition quiet tension in a comedy film is unforgettable. Heaven Above, 1963. Next, Heaven Above, 1963. Religious satire is dangerous territory, but this film steps onto the wire and walks it. The plot: a sincere clergyman takes Christian teaching seriously to astonishing effect. He tries to help the poor, challenge privilege, and call hypocrisy to account. Society falls apart around him. Peter Sellers, as Reverend Smallwood, is naive, earnest, and explosive. When he's assigned to a posh parish, he confronts wealth, power, corruption. The film doesn't soften the critique. It doesn't hide. It asks, what if Christianity actually meant radical change? The result? Chaos, moral reckoning, and structural fear. America's religious sensibilities made distribution nearly impossible. The film wasn't mocking faith so much as challenging institutions. That line is slippery, and many weren't ready to cross it. Only Two Can Play, 1962. Now consider Only Two Can Play, 1962. It's a story of small ambitions clashing with big illusions. A Welsh librarian, dissatisfied with provincial life, dreams of sophistication, status, and romance. He chases ideals he barely understands. Peter Sellers' John Lewis is self-deluding, desperate, hopeful. His affair with a higher-class woman catalyzes every inner conflict: class anxiety, marital disillusionment, identity. The film never condemns him. It simply observes the tragedy of wanting more than one can carry. The moral dimension is ambiguous, pleasure and pain intertwined. American comedies of class tend to mock the lower classes or sentimentalize upward mobility. This one sits between, drawing tension from the gap. It's too morally complex for export. Section 12. The Magic Christian, 1969. Finally, we arrive at the wildest of them, The Magic Christian, 1969. This one is philosophy masquerading as farce. An eccentric billionaire, Sir Guy Grand, spends a fortune proving one idea: everyone has a price. He stages escalating pranks, paying people to degrade themselves, offering shameful tasks for cash, and documents their collapse of dignity. Peter Sellers plays Grand and his adopted son with gleeful malevolence. What's terrifying is how willingly people comply. The film implicates its audience. When dignity is for sale, what remains sacred? The final scenes don't comfort you. They leave you unsettled. Hollywood, with its moral lines, tends to avoid implicating the viewer. The Magic Christian forces reflection. No redemption, no soft landing, just a mirror. Climax and turning point. As we moved through these 12 films, you saw a pattern: comedy as demolition, satire as excavation. These aren't feel-good stories. They're disquieting, provocative, unsettling. And that's precisely why they were buried in export silence. Hollywood and American audiences often want laughs that comfort rather than challenge. These films dared to expose brittleness of social class, religious institutions, labor systems, national pride, institutional authority, even human dignity itself. So what does it mean that Americans missed them? It's not ignorance. It's a barrier of taste, risk, and cultural safety. These films demanded your moral discomfort. They didn't apologize or explain themselves. They left questions open. When Hollywood attempted to remake or sanitize them, it erased the edge. It folded danger into cuddly morality. That's not adaptation, that's censorship by comfort. If comedy's job is to destabilize assumptions, these forgotten British films were some of the sharpest destabilizers ever made. They remind us, laughter can wound, reveal, assault, unsettle as much as it can amuse. Which of these films will you seek out first? The Green Man? The Magic Christian? Or maybe I'm All Right Jack? Comment your pick. And while you're at it, ask yourself, which modern comedies today carry that same dangerous spark? Because the torch was passed. Some comedians walk it, many don't. If you want a companion list of modern films that inherited this tradition, I can send you that next. Or I can script you a list of underrated comedies in your own country that mirror this edge. Let me know which direction you want to explore next, and I'll build it with the same energy, depth, and cinematic appetite. Thanks for watching. Prepare to redefine your idea of comedy.